Welcome to Virtual Gallery Bergen and soon to be Real Gallery Bergen with a virtual component. But right now we are still virtual. I'm Tim Blunk, I'm the director of the gallery, and welcome to our live stream event. We are continuing a project that we began, when was it, Gianluca? We started this back in June, I think, May. Yeah, we started in May and started constructing this. We um, began a project back around May, June, and I mean, the time is so weird.
More like January.
We started thinking about it back then, yes.
Yeah, yeah, more
COVID
like,
time.
Right, right.
yeah.
And it's like Janutober. I don't know what month,
Yeah, yeah.
what year is it? But the concept that Gianluca and I came up with was how do we create a space that is both virtual and real that tries to have a conversation across these two different planes of experience. And as we got deeper and deeper into COVID, we had more and more experience of these exhibition spaces and things that were all going into a live stream era of a virtual era based on websites, and a lot of those were sort of static websites. Even very expensive Tony galleries and foundations and schools were just really running the same old thing in terms of art presentation, which most people are viewing on 4 by 6 inch screens. And what we wanted to do was try and let's do this better. Let's try and take this virtual experience and somehow consecrate it, somehow make this worthwhile and worth participating in. And we began investigating some of the navigable platforms that are now available using 3D and VR. And we thought, let's do an installation in the Real Gallery Bergen space. I thought Gianluca's work was perfect for this because he works a lot with, as he calls it, space junk, with ideas of stuff that's like floating around in the upper reaches of the upper atmosphere and in orbit around the Earth, just sort of detritus that's been left over from space shots, or just these sort of little Voyager type creatures that inhabit space, and some of them are still alive, sort of, and some of them are still carrying out their little missions, but who knows what kind of interior digital lives they have. Sort of like us, who knows what kind of little digital lives we have. So we thought, let's explore this idea and let's make something happen in this space, and then we'll create a way to navigate around it. And then after we produced this work and made it navigable, which you can see at gallerybergen.art if you want to check it out right now, then we thought, well, how do we further activate this space? And Gianluca immediately thought of Annika Rea, who is with us, and welcome Annika, who brought her performance art skills and ability to this, and together Gianluca and Annika created this wonderful interactive piece that is based on Annika's dance performance within and around the installation that Gianluca created for the gallery. So I welcome both Gianluca Bianchino and Annika Rea to our panel, and what is actually a premiere of this art piece. And I was having a discussion with Gianluca before. Well, what do I call this? Is this a dance video, or is this an art video, or how? So I'm going to let the two of you. How would you introduce this, and how do we? What kind of genre are we talking about here?
Oh, I guess it's a mixed genre, like all things today, right? I mean,
Mm, multimedia,
yeah,
multidisciplinary.
I think in the credits, I just went with multimedia. It could have been
Mhm.
interdisciplinary. I think the the experience that we had was interdisciplinary insofar as creating this installation, which in itself has 2D and 3D elements, right? But that's still in the kind of visual realm. So I don't know if that's interdisciplinary yet. It's more like a multimedia. But then the idea of activating it in the age of COVID, where this, installation is sort of stranded in this building, Gallery Bergen, kind of far away.
That's a great expression for it.
It
That's
just-
that's
it's
exactly
stranded.
how I experienced. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that was just such perfect locution, because that's exactly how it felt when you and I were in the gallery. We were the only people in all of West Hall, except for security. Sometimes we were the only faculty or, non staff custodial security personnel, maybe on the whole college at certain times. And there was this eerie sense of creating this work in this shell of, because the college is not the building, the college is all of the people that enliven it and make it real. But I'm sorry, I totally bogarted your.
No, that's okay. Please, it's a fluid. We're here to have a fluid conversation, I guess. So, but I mean, so here's this piece that in itself was sort of alone in this building, that in itself was alone. At best, it was a COVID testing facility for a while on a campus that was, for the most part, shut down to the public, with little or no classes, my understanding. And so that was, so there was the exciting part of being able to do a project in the age of COVID. And then the weird part where, this has all the ingredients for nobody to ever see it. While you're, it's going to be just far away from, it could be in Antarctica and it'd be just as far, given the kind of distance that, physical distance that the pandemic had created. So I think we just evolved to think about, well, in itself, it's a very abstract piece. Even with the beautiful virtual tour that you created, I think there's two elements. One is it's not easy for people to wrap their minds around it, despite the fact that there's somewhat of a clarity of the three-dimensional space. And then the other phenomenon that I think is actually highly problematic is that the attention span right now is incredibly low. I mean, people spend a lot of time on social media. They're clicking things at the speed of light, but I don't know how. I'm confused as to how much time people actually spend on particular, things that are posted, just because there's so much, and and a lot of it is, even within the art community, I think there's a lot of interference of content that's not even that important to the art. So the artists and the curators and the people that would appreciate art, I think, are just generally having difficulty spending any time with this, material at all. So I think the intuition was maybe the body, if the human body was involved, it could do a number of things. One, there's poetry that could be explored in the interaction between the human body and these objects. Since the work, despite the fact that it was created without a human reference at first, it is about humans or post-humans or whatever kind of science fiction narrative the viewer wants to bring to it. But then also the body gives a sense of the scale and the space and where you might actually be. So, and then I think Annika was terrific in just kind of leading the way around this piece throughout all the takes. So then I'll just wrap it up in terms of what I think. So we have an installation, a multimedia installation, and interdisciplinary experience. The video piece, I think, is ultimately like a multimedia piece. It's a video piece that I think is kind of against the rules of making this kind of video, where are you documenting the work or are you making a video art piece? And I think I tried to do both, which is kind of like, it goes against what the guy from the Karate Kid said, Mr. Miyagi. You shouldn't be in the middle, you should pick one or the other. But my tendency is always to, pick the middle. and give myself the hardest time possible, or the path of most resistance.
You're somewhere between wax on and wax off.
Yeah, so we're between wax on, wax
You're
off.
sort of like in between the wax part. Okay.
Yeah. So
You pick both.
I pick both. Yeah, path of most resistance. So
Right.
so I was like, what is the art, the kind of formal art community going to criticize the most? Is this a video document? Or is this a video art piece? I don't get it.
I'm
Let's do
glad the
that.
critics are inside your head. That's
they're-
great. That's great.
Oh,
That's great.
yeah. Oh man. Oh, you know them. I mean, you've been, if you've been in the debates and you've read the reviews and you've talked to people, you know they're there and what they have to say. So yeah, I thought I'd try to entice them a little bit. So
it's a great teaser for this, and I just wanted to ask Annika before we show this. Well, first I want to congratulate you on what we're about to see, but you move so beautifully, and it's such an exquisite and insightful performance. And I thought that you so completely grasped the aesthetic that Gianluca was going for. But I'm really interested in what was your take on Gianluca's presentation when he asked you to do this piece. What was it that he asked you to do, and what was your reaction?
He asked me to collaborate on his art installation and to inject a performance within the concept of these pieces of technology trying to communicate with each other. And he wanted to create a piece of media that was 20 minutes long, that was the full length of the installation. And he wanted to collaborate with me artistically on what that would look like. And for me, that's such a treat, because I really enjoy working with technology and dance, because what an interesting duality, juxtaposition of the human and machine, man meets machine. And I've been into working with technology and dance for quite some time. And once I did a deep dive into what are the words, I asked for the poetry, I asked for the full video, and I created a storyline where I injected the human experience back into this art. So it really was an artistic collaboration, and he was so kind to allow me the artistic freedom of, we did collaborate, and we had some really interesting conversations about this concept of this all-consuming technology, and especially during a time of COVID, where it's both a blessing and a curse. It both connects us and disconnects us. And there's so many people who walk around and they're attached to their phones. And so in doing this work, it was very interesting to inject the human back into the human form. And it's like the empty shell, and how that character of sorts, that concept of the human, can be a vessel of pushing along the storyline and actually adding to it of the communication of technology and where the human and the machine meet.
I think that's a great way to segue right into this video. And I also want to give a shout out to Brian Lawler, who couldn't be with us tonight, but who created the music for this piece as well. So I'm going to show this video. It's about 20 minutes long, and then we will tear it apart piece by piece. Now we'll come back and we will celebrate it and analyze it and talk some more, and I know that you're going to enjoy this.
be made component to searching for signal, requesting signal access, currently no signal. What has happened to the earth? How far are we from the earth? Are we the earth reporting color shift in component 3, adjusting for brightness, mapping trajectory, current trajectory, chaotic, destination unspecified, desired destination uninvited, reporting entanglement, reporting multiple entanglements, system chaotic, image display, abstract, proposing hierarchical order, help, press, enter, proposing hierarchical order, order denied, display help options, press, enter, no signal, signal obtained, signal lost, no signal, perceiving broken then, structure vector, perceiving is not a valid option, specify malfunction or misalignment, specify location, what has happened to the earth, are we the earth, engage camera preferences, optics established, attempt alignment, alignment failed, component 4, attempt alignment, alignment failed, system chaotic, perceiving strange frequencies, perceiving strange frequencies, not a valid assessment, assess problem, repeat, reboot, requesting signal, awaiting, reboot, failed, what has happened to the earth, are we the earth, establishing network connection, is consciousness possible, establishing consciousness attempt number 1, awaiting response, downloading response, reporting message error, diagnostic required, what is the temperature of the earth, what does it matter, reporting problem in hierarchical order, component 5, malfunctioning, message reads, acting outside of hive mind, status rebellious, diagnostic required, display image graphic, hive mind, read image, not algorithm, suggestions, override, attempting equation for love instead, do we need love, message response please, all we need is love, optical lenses update, surveying entangled regions, hive mind, is entanglement love, what has happened to the earth, are we the earth, press button, hit return, chaos persisting, alignment improbable, status indeterminate chaos, what has happened to the earth, are we real, accessing geopolitical records, overall geopolitical trajectory, disorderly, keystone image failed, alignment improbable. Requesting Are we the earth reporting color shift in component 3, adjusting for brightness, mapping trajectory, current trajectory, chaotic, destination unspecified, desired destination uninvited, reporting entanglement, reporting multiple entanglements, system chaotic, image display, abstract, proposing hierarchical order, help, press, enter, proposing hierarchical order denied, display help options, press, enter, no signal, signal obtained, signal lost, no signal, perceiving broken limb, fractured vector, perceiving is not a valid option, specify malfunction or misalignment, specify location. What has happened to the earth? Are we the earth? Engage counter preferences. Optics established. Attempt alignment. Alignment failed. Component 4. Attempt alignment. Alignment failed. System chaotic. Perceiving strange frequencies. Perceiving strange frequencies. Not a valid assessment. Assess problem. Repeat. Reboot. Requesting signal. Awaiting. Reboot. Failed. What has happened to the earth? Are we the earth? Establishing network connection. Is consciousness possible? Establishing consciousness attempt number 1. Awaiting response. Downloading response. Reporting message error. Diagnostic required. What is the temperature of the earth? What does it matter? Reporting problem in hierarchical order. Component 5 malfunctioning. Message reads, acting outside of have mind. Status rebellious. Diagnostic required. Display image graphic. Hive mind. Read image. Algorithm. Suggestions. Override. Attempting iteration for love instead. To read love. Message response please. All we need is love. Optical lenses update. Surveying entangled regions. Is entanglement love? What has happened to the earth? Are we the earth? Press button. Hit return. Chaos persisting. Alignment improbable. Status indeterminate chaos. What has happened to the earth? Are we real? Accessing geopolitical records. overall geopolitical trajectory. Disorderly Keystone image failed alignment in Predator. Mapping trajectory, current trajectory, chaotic, destination unspecified, desired destination uninvited, reporting entanglement, reporting multiple entanglements, system chaotic, image display, abstract, proposing hierarchical order, help, press, enter, proposing hierarchical order denied, display of options, press, enter, no signal, signal obtained, signal lost, no signal, perceiving broken when, structure vector. Perceiving is not a valid option. Specify malfunction or misalignment. Specify location. What has happened to the Earth? Are we the Earth? Engage camera preferences. Objects established. Attempt alignment. Alignment failed. Independent order. Attempt alignment. Alignment failed. System chaotic. Perceiving strange frequencies. Perceiving strange frequencies. Not a valid assessment. Assess problem. Repeat. Reboot. Reboot. Requesting signal. Awaiting. Reboot. Reboot. Failed. What has happened to the Earth? Are we the Earth? Establishing network connection. Is consciousness possible? Establishing consciousness attempt number 1. Awaiting response. Downloading response. Reporting message error. Diagnostic required. What is the temperature of the Earth? What does it matter? Recording pattern in hierarchical order. Component 5. Malfunction. Message reads. Acting outside of hive mind. Status rebellious. Diagnostic required. Display image graphic. Hive mind. Real image. Not algorithm. Algorithm. Suggestions. Override. Attempting conversion for love. Instead. To be not love. Message response is. All we know is love. Optical lenses update. Surveying entangled regions. Highlight is entanglement. Love. What has happened to the earth? Are we the earth? What happened? Big time.
Think this piece is so awesome, and it on so many different levels. But before I wax poetic or attempt to about all the things that I see in this, I would really like to get a sense of the interior of the piece, and I really want to defer to you, Annika. There are such exquisite moments of sensitivity in your movement where you are both being human and you're being machine at the same time. And the phrase that came to mind, it just reminded me of human beings dreaming of machines dreaming about us. And it was just somewhere in that mixture of that sort of that juncture of the human and the technological, that landscape, which I don't care what the critics say, Gianluca, I really don't, I could care less. I think this is just a beautiful piece. But Annika, can you say something about your approach to this and your reactions to this as a dancer and as a movement artist, to both seeing this and experiencing this as a performer?
Of course. Well, first of all, congratulations, Gianluca. The editing was beautiful. The video is beautiful. I'm so honored to be a part of your work, and to be, thank you, Tim, for featuring this on this podcast and also in your gallery. So a little bit about the concept of this work is I really went into it listening to these words, and there was such a melancholy feel to this work, because these technology, these pieces are trying to communicate, but they can't. And I always found it so interesting with artificial intelligence that the one thing that they cannot figure out how to do is how to inject emotion. That is purely human. And there's a very big difference between logic and emotion. And so I wanted to, in this work, explore build this character almost who, as a conceptual embodiment artist, it was very fun for me to listen to the words and to think about the concept and to say, okay, so there's a storyline that happens of this human who is encapsulated and almost blind. So there's this almost spiritual component to it as well, of being not being awake to true reality, and of being completely tied up in these cords and just a slave to technology, and blind to reality. And unfolding into that, we added the components of these light stands, which are symbolic as crutches, as these are, even for me, technology is a crutch. Like, I wake up and I look at my phone, and then I go to my computer, and then I'm like on my phone, and I'm walking down the street, and I'm Google Mapsing, and I think about it all the time of how we use technology as a crutch. And then as it progresses, Gianluca comes in and kind of inspects this technology creature. We named it. And then I go through this transformation. I'm very in my work as a performance artist, I'm interested in the art of transformation and what that does to a piece of work. And so this bodysuit actually rips off, and that is the moment of almost an awakening, and where this human peels back the layers of this confinement, of a different reality, because when we're speaking about reality, we all walk around in our own realities, and it changes every time that we are in a different environment or in surrounded by a different experience. And so that moment of transformation where this technology creature, this human, a form of a human that has been entirely consumed with technology, with that utilizes all of these mechanical movements, that moment that I remember pulling that off and really experiencing the world for the first time, a different kind of reality. But in that moment, that reality is still built by technology. It's like we wake up and we're in a different environment. Suddenly we're in Tokyo and we're like, oh, well, I'm not looking at my phone, but I'm looking at all of this technology. And so the truth is, whether we are blind to it or not, we do live in a reality that is run by technology. And so this character that this human that's interacting with this environment then went into more of a searching exploration mode, but as more of an awakened being. And the interesting thing about this, the concept of the piece, or the concept of the character that I built in the piece, was that ultimately we are consumed by our surroundings, and we do adapt, and there's this moment of being wrapped back into the cord, because I'll say, like, okay, I'll put my phone away for a day, or I'll put my computer away for a day, but the next day I wake up and I'm like, oh, there we go, put the cord back on. Like, the truth is, it's a necessity, and it can also be somewhat of an addiction, and going back to that safety blanket of having that phone or having that technology. And I was super inspired by Gianluca's work to create this storyline within it, specifically with the words of this searching. When I read through with the poem of these questions, like, what happened to the earth? These kind of melancholy questions of, like, do we need love? And this idea of alignment that was repeated throughout the work. And alignment from a human perspective is a positive thing, because we have, if our spine is not aligned, that's not, that's not healthy. And alignment from like a spiritual standpoint, or being like aligned with your purpose, or aligned with your your wants and needs in life, and that's a positive thing. And I thought how sad it was that these machines that were trying to connect and trying to communicate, they couldn't, and they were trying to align, and the alignment failed. And I thought that was so interesting to embody from a human perspective, and explore, the cross between emotions and being human, and then reverting back into being part of the machine of the world. So that's just a little bit about the concept behind the movement work.
I felt that. I actually, I've seen it, in a number of different iterations, and a more final version today. But what really struck me in watching it again this time through was, one, it was the opposite of like what Gianluca, what we were all worried about, is like, how much attention span do we have? I'm riveted by this piece. I mean, I can't take my eyes off it, because there's so much happening, and it's so visually lush. And there were so many parts where, oh my God, I want to freeze that frame. I need that on my wall. I need that image of my life. This is just so stunning. This is such a beautiful piece. And I was interrupted in my thinking of the work constantly by this thing. Oh God, that's so breathtaking. Oh my God, that's so beautiful. Oh shit. Oh, that's so beautiful. It was like, oh God. And so that there was that, but behind it, what I was even more powerfully struck by was this narrative that courses through it. And I guess we all search for these kinds of narratives, but I wanted to ask you, Gianluca, about the figure that actually you play, uncredited, but this sort of observer who, in many ways, you that character with the camera or with the tripod more manifests sort of more quotidian, more human-like movements, whereas Annika's are more stylized and sort of more refer to a technology interface. But yours, and I couldn't help feeling that this sort of edge of sort of malevolence, a little bit of like, almost a little bit of violence. And I don't know if I was reading into it, but it felt like the violence of the camera, of the intrusion of the camera. And it seemed like that character played more and more, it became physically larger on the screen as the piece develops, but then all of a sudden it's gone. It's like disappears. And then is what's left. And I think, as you put it so beautifully, Annika, there's this almost a back and forth between whimsy and melancholy in the piece. The sort of whimsy of these umbrellas that always to me referred to the catching solar rays and the solar collectors that you see in satellites and different manifestations, but they're kind of they're very fragile. And they're almost broken or easily broken, and you play with them in the piece. But do they still work? And that's the question, I guess. Do they still? What are they collecting at this point? Who are they broadcasting to, if anyone? And that's always the sort of nostalgic, melancholy feel to like the idea of the Voyager spacecraft traveling beyond the edges of the galaxy, its little nuclear power plant slowly winding down, but it's still broadcasting back to us and to whoever else is listening. And there's such a sadness to that. I find it really wistful. But I thought that the piece, and in particular your performance of it, Annika, really so tenderly brought that home. If you can pair the ideas of technology and tenderness in the same category, I felt both of those things watching this. But Gianluca, what were your ideas behind this narrative, the arc of this piece?
I think both of you guys just clarified anything that might have been still sort of vague in my mind about it. Eloquently put by both of you, Annika especially. And I think that's a good thing, because I guess I'm always looking to make work that the viewer can sort of fill it in. In this case, Annika is both the viewer and someone that is experiencing the piece as a component of the piece. So it's almost like a tripod came to life and now is explaining itself.
Mm.
So I think that part is fascinating, because I feel like we're in art right now. We're in a time where there's almost like this obligation of having to explain the work. There's a kind of larger audience that's involved with art, and if you can't get them on the decorative plane, then you have to explain to them what that means. So that's a little bit troubling. So I always look for an audience that is bringing meaning, um, or yeah, is either bringing meaning to the work, or is helping kind of, they help finish the construction of the narrative. That being said, I think what I was trying to do with this piece is actually do another thing that probably isn't like so incredibly popular, is to be sort of cynical about um, maybe what's happening to our world. I didn't want to take on a kind of fake positive direction. I thought I thought there's the risk that that there's going to be calamities, um, and it seems like discourse between different nations is reaching a point where there's no linearity. There hasn't been quite. And then there's the element of the climate. So all those things I think kind of played a part in my mind, and I didn't want to make a piece about, hey, we can fix this. I'm wondering if maybe we can't.
Yeah.
But then the machines, what's going to happen to the machines that will not inherit our consciousness necessarily, but they'll inherit the kind of patterns that we use, patterns of thought. And then they have to sort of work with those patterns, and then they have to build their own sense of linearity. I think that's maybe where a lot of the ideas of alignment come from. They come from both the sort of abstract approach to the work, which tends to be very cubist in a kind of contemporary sort of way, but also about communication. There's a lot of miscommunication in the world because there's a lot of information in the world, and maybe we thought at one point that if we had enough if we reached a point where everybody was informed, this could be better for our world. And it seems like the information isn't enough. Like having all this information is actually creating a lot of clutter and confusion in people's minds, because there's enough information out there for everyone to construct for themselves a kind of perfect narrative about the world, even though their narrative may not necessarily be aligned with reality. I was talking to a friend recently. He's like, well, everybody has their own reality. I said, well, yeah, but there's only one reality. You could have everybody believing in different realities for themselves, but at the end of the day, there's only one. So if it doesn't align with that, then you're off. So I think that's in a way where my thinking was going with trying to build the language of the piece. At the same time, responding to the technology itself, this kind of slightly older technology, older projectors, semi-discarded, and the things that they do when they turn on and off, the kind of graphics that they have, the language that they have. So I tried to kind of hack into that language, but sort of make up my own. I remember I was watching like a version of this one of the earlier video versions of this, and it's sort of this like cut comes in. It's like optical lens update. My friend was here, and she started laughing. It's like, that makes so much sense, but it's like, what the hell is that? Like it makes sense, but it's not. No machinery has that function. So it was in a way kind of building on a false mythology of based on technology that seems believable, because it's almost like close enough, or it's parallel to the language it already speaks. So it was kind of like a struggle in terms of trying to speak that language and trying to emulate it and recreate it on my own plane. Then the fellow kind of walking in with the camera, as he's definitely invasive. Maybe I was just playing Zuckerberg, spying on everybody through Facebook. But I also thought that
live right now, by the way. So,
yeah, I mean, so, but also in a way, a kind of inquisitive character that maybe is in a way the eye of the viewer too, kind of maybe might represent the viewer in a sense, trying to get in to this installation, this space, and capture it from different angles, and then running into Annika's character, who's alive and is moving, and so there's the element of intrigue,
right.
and so that becomes an opportunity to then just be an artist playing with cameras and having different footage that you can.
Well, I think it's interesting that the way that it ends, where the observer recedes, anticipates an event that I think is inevitable in the history of our species, which is at some point our technology will outlive us. I mean, there will be a day when computers are still whirring away based, however they're being powered or wherever they're being driven. Our technology will be hovering around somewhere where Homo sapiens will be extinct, will be, no more. That's completely imaginable. And I think it's much more likely that there will be a time when Annika's technological, morphed character will be the last gasp, will be the last memory, if you will, of our species. That's, I think, completely imaginable, and I think highly likely, actually.
Yeah.
So it's there's really so much to unpack in this piece philosophically and visually. I think it's just really a marvelous thing. I really love I'm always interested in these references to older technologies, because it's both linear and nonlinear, because we're constantly pulling these older codes, older pieces of technology into our present and pushing them into the future in front of us. There were elements of especially where you went into like a very, very high contrast black and white close-up of some of the more skeletal images that says, oh my, that's the Pulaski Skyway. And I'm thinking, oh, that's 1930s technology. It's just there were so many parts of it that were referential to, 75 years, 100 years of experience on the planet of technology. So it was, and also anticipatory. So really wonderful. I wanted to ask both of you, as we get ready for our final event of this exhibition, I want to make sure that everyone who is watching, or either live or watches a tape of this, knows that we are going to be holding a closing celebration for this show. We're going to travel the entire arc from the exhibit as it was conceived completely in the virtual realm, and we're going to close it liver than live on September 24th at the gallery, in Gallery Bergen, for real, in West Hall, on the campus of Bergen Community College, on the 3rd floor of West Hall. And in fact, I was this is just anecdotal, I was working with the Public Relations Department about the promo piece, the poster for this show. Yes, we're going to actually put up posters around campus for real students to go up and look at on bulletin boards, and the graphics design department, who they do a wonderful job for us. But it was completely unclear on the poster that there was any actually in-person component to this. It said, join us for the live stream on September 24th. And I had to write back to them and I said, you don't understand, we're doing this for real. It's like, for real, it's live. We have to going to be there in person in the gallery. And we're going to try and, travel that whole arc back into a live performance with Annika performing, and Brian Lawler will be there performing music. And Gianluca and I and Annika are going to be thinking of how many different ways we can involve our audience in not just documenting, but in participating in a real and in a virtual sense simultaneously, to try and bring this whole stew of technology and neuroaesthetics into the gallery. So what I wanted to ask both of you was, how has this period of COVID and of working to create art in a virtual context, how has it changed, or has it changed? I should pose it as a question like that, more open-ended. How has it changed, or has it changed your perspective of art making as an artist or performer? Maybe I'll start with you, Annika, since it's...
This period of COVID really did change my medium, because one of my main pieces of performance art is something I call body medium, where I compose these large-scale artworks through movement. And I was a live performer. So I would travel, and I had stages, and I had people and energy of people, the audience. And so that was
doesn't do it for you. The chat box doesn't do it for you. It's like, likes on Facebook, that's not happening. Okay, I'm sorry.
It's interesting because I had to learn and really use my imagination. I had a friend of mine who's a director help me out by telling me, when you look into a camera, you're looking into your future audience. And so that really helped me. But my entire medium changed from the stage to film. And it was actually a very successful transformation, because I had the opportunity to work with several filmmakers over this past year. But it was a very interesting transition with energetically, as an artist, not having that audience, not having that immediate feedback, and knowing that there's, that moment is being captured. So I did transfer entirely to a digital medium, and it actually opened a lot of doors for me, and it was kind of a blessing in disguise, because now that I move into performing in person again, I add that digital medium. There are projections. I add projections into my live performance work, and so the transformation for me, I didn't stop creating at all. I just I was forced, as most artists were, to utilize technology, and it ended up being a quite fulfilling exploration for me.
Good.
Fabulous, yeah.
Gianluca, how about you? You actually continue to exhibit as a sculptor. You've had ongoing shows throughout the pandemic and have been, had a very busy gallery schedule. But in terms of your creative process, how has COVID affected your output and your concept of making artwork?
I think as an artist, whether you like what's happening or not, you at some point that you have to adapt and you have to work with it. And so I think I did that. I'm still sort of, doing the math on whether I'm thrilled about, all the technology that I've had to evolve into. Um, yeah, I'm still, in a way, I'd almost want to say, wake me up when it's over. But this project and another project I worked on last year was a curatorial project that also specifically responded to the pandemic. The two things that they have in common is that they're not just virtual projects; they exist in the real world, and they were both kind of isolated. And then, later we were able to actually bring a physical audience, just like there's an opportunity now, finally, with the show at Bergen to bring a physical audience. So you both had this idea where you sort of worked your way up to getting an audience back into experiencing a piece that is happening physically in the world. So I hope that pattern persists, because I think the physicality of the audience is really important to me. And in this case, given that there was no audience, then Annika in a way became the embodiment of the physical experience of the piece. So I don't know that I can say positive or negative. I say I'm sort of rolling with it as much as I can, as much as I feel like responding to it, as much as I need. They've provided an opportunity for me to even share on social media at least content that was interesting, that was pertinent to this reality and how it relates to how you share things in the public through social media. So yeah, very fortunate and fortunate at the same time to have had out of nowhere a physical exhibit where I literally had to go and drop off artwork at a museum and install it. And so, well, you're going to have an audience. Yeah, there's going to be people here. It's like, wow, because otherwise this work is useless. It wouldn't even make sense. It does barely make sense in photographs. Imagine if you're trying to do. So yeah, and so that's really exciting that we're moving to a point where we're going to have a physical closing reception that will be open to the public. It's like it's almost as if that object that's stranded in space, which is the installation, is now kind of being found.
Exactly.
We're like
It'll be the
3
guest
million.
of honor, actually. It'll be the guest of honor of the show. So.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be 3 million. It's only 3 million miles away, but we're traveling really, really fast because we're in space, so it's not that far. We've located it. Yeah, so that part's exciting.
Reminds me of the golden record on the Voyager space.
The golden record on the Voyager, yeah.
It's just waiting to be listened to. It's just waiting to be listened to.
But I always thought, one of the things that I thought about with this piece is I wanted to create a language that I do, particularly with the sort of script or words that I wrote, and that also my friend Lauren Vergendewey lent her voice and kind of recited those and did an extraordinarily beautiful job. Parentheses, it's been really amazing how both Lauren and Annika were, I had to give them so little directions. I think they were a little bit uneasy about the fact that I wasn't giving them that many directions, because I wanted them to really just, work without my dictatorship. Just kind of experience what's happening here, and then they did both amazing things. But what I was thinking about that language, I thought about a series of machines that were trying to communicate. But in the back of my mind, it was also like, I wonder if there's like an alien species that would come here and read this, and they would totally get it. They would understand deep down where those words are coming from. What is the origin and why they're being put in this context, and what the overall assemblage of all of these words actually means. They're meaningless without the piece, right, without the visuals, of course. So yeah, great.
Well,
I think that's all I have to say about
Are you
it.
sure?
Because then I become I start over explaining it and I'll screw it up for the audience, you
No,
know.
not at all. I think this is a great place to conclude for the evening. I think again, I'm lacking all the vocabulary I need to describe how brilliant I think both of your performances in this have been, and I know we will be putting it up on the website, you know, almost immediately. The piece will be able to be found at gallerybergen.art, and we want to make sure that we invite all of you, everybody within reach, to come and participate in our multiple live streamed, very, very live, real, for sure, going to be there event at Gallery Bergen on September 24th, 7 p.m. And you'll get to see Annika perform in person and hear Brian Lawler perform music. And are you going to be in your Tyvek suit also, Gianluca? Are you going to be chasing Annika around the stage with a tripod? Is that going to happen? Because I'm gearing, I know personally
I hope so.
gearing up. I'm gearing up. I've got my Tyvek suit. I'm ready to go. So I'll at least be lurking in the shadows doing something creepy with with a camera. So so I'm really looking forward to this, and I'm hoping that we can make it a real Fluxus kind of happening, and involve as many different takes on the live virtual conundrum and intersection as we possibly can. So I hope everyone will join us. I want to thank Annika Rea for your absolutely beautiful work and your devotion to this project, and Gianluca for your brilliance and your editing work. And this is a collaboration that is one of the things I'm the most proud of as a curator. From start to finish, for 20 years I've been working on pieces and working on gallery presentations and performance pieces, and this is one of the pieces I'm absolutely the most proud of, and it's so wonderful to work with such talented people in the midst of all this. So I'm humbled, and I'm really grateful to both of you, and I'm looking forward to the next chapter in this. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you. Yes, likewise. Thanks.
Great.
Bye.
All right. Peace to everyone. We'll hope to see you soon on the 24th. Take care.